You're tuned in to the MtG Cable cast, where they cover Magic, the Gathering Finance. All right? You don't know about it? You're tuned in right now and get ready to learn some shit. Buckle your seatbelts and light a blunt and get ready for the MtG Cable cast. Starring Reptar and Thirsty, them onion head motherfuckers.
Alrighty, guys, welcome to the newest episode of the Cabal Cast, and this week we are bringing you our annual over-under, where we set lines on absolutely ludicrous statements about Wizards of the Coast and how things are going to be run for the next year, and we take the over or the under from the set number. Now, before we get started with that, I do want to take a second to shout out someone who I've been struggling a lot lately, and they've actually been really good coming through at a key time, and that person is Drew Locke, who just delivered the Philadelphia Eagles a stunning loss, because fuck Philadelphia, fuck the Eagles. Sorry, right. Philadelphia's great. Forget the Eagles.
I mean,
anyways.
They were up when I looked. So to kick it off, we're going to talk about Commander.
Yes.
So we're going to look at the number of set releases in the upcoming year.
Yeah, calendar 2024.
And we are counting Commander sets attached to the main set as individual set releases for the purpose of this question. For me, I'm going to take the we set the over-under at 14.5, and I'm actually going to take the under on this.
Really?
Yes. So there are 9 sets, for those that don't know, that are announced this coming year. And if we take a look at them, we see that one of them is an arena set, which is just kind of like a whatever thing. So we're not going to get a Commander product for that. So that drops it down from 9 to 8. One of them is already announced to have a Commander set. So that brings us back up to 9. Then from there, it's Ravnica Remastered that will not have a Commander set. So we're still at 9. And that leaves us 7 other sets to have a Commander set with them. Fallout, we know we'll have a Commander set, but none of the other universes beyond. So I don't think we're going to get that many more Commander sets with the rest of this. And I wouldn't Assassin's Creed might have Commander sets. I might have a Commander set. That I could see that happening, but I'm willing to bet the under on that it might not. Similarly, there is the Ravnica Clue Edition, which is called an Annex set, which is a really weird and interesting thing when you try and read up on it. And basically, they just threw the word Annex around to a lot of different things. But it sounds like it might have a Commander set, but not guaranteed, so I'm going to take the under on that one.
Feels like a bad Explorers of Ixalan.
That's one of the things they put under the Annex sets, for sure. And then one of the big question marks for me is Modern Horizons 3, and I don't think that set is going to get a Commander set because we do not have Provenance for that, but that doesn't mean we wouldn't. And if I'm going to lose this over-under, I will be fine losing it to Modern Horizons 3 having Commander sets.
Commander Boogaloo.
Yeah.
It's just commanders that are elementals. You exile a card to cast it.
Yeah, they actually turned all the Niphilims or whatever they are from from Dissension into Legends, so you can play them. Yeah.
So I am taking the over.
Okay. I think it makes sense.
I understand where the math is. I also know that they said Final Fantasy Universes Beyond was going to be a Commander product, which is interesting. More on that in the next question. But I have full confidence that there are probably also going to be, even if we get half of them as Commander sets, we're at 11 or 12.
Yeah.
I fully expect to see some number of unannounced surprise sets come out. I would expect that number to be 2 or 3. At that point, we're sitting close enough to 14 that, you know what, fine, let's do it. I'm okay with it. Because they've only been doing this annual, look ahead for the release for 2 or 3 years now. And they've had some surprise releases in there, some product delays, whatever. But I fully expect that they're going to full choo-choo ahead into the money grab. So there are going to be some products we don't know about that they're still designing, that they're going to come out with in some way that aren't going to be arena products. I guess we probably should have said paper products, but so I'm taking the over on this one for sure.
And like I said, I think it's a perfectly fine place to look at it. What really it was the annex set that really brought me from the over to the under, was trying to figure out what the hell that means. And when I found it was like, whatever we want it to mean, I was like, all right, I'll take the under on this one and lose in fantastic fashion.
Yeah.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just keep rattling them down.
Yep.
Number of unannounced universes beyond, we set the over under at 2.5. What do you got for this one?
So I conservatively am going to take the under, and the reason being we do have 3 universes beyond announced, and the only unannounced quote universes beyond we had here was the Jurassic Park tie-in, really.
Yeah.
That wasn't I guess was universes within. I don't expect them to have too many of these unannounced or any really.
No.
And even if they continue the trend of the universes within and we want to count that there, it's still only 1 in the first year. So I don't know how big of an impact that's going to have. I don't think they're going to jump the shark that badly. Okay. I think under.
Okay. I'm also going to take the under, but I think it's going to be, for me, it's another close one. I think there's the opportunity for 2 this year, because it seems like for 2024, we have Fallout and we have Assassin's Creed. 2025 is Final Fantasy. Yeah. So it seems like we're basically queuing up for what I'm terming the year of the video game. And for universes beyond and where we're going, I think BioShock and Red Dead Redemption makes sense as
they do.
Something like that. So I could imagine those 2 kind of coming in for Outlaws of Thunder Junction, and then either Duskmore and House of Horror, or maybe something weird for Murders, where there's some awkward BioShock tie-in that we wouldn't expect. They're just kind of shoehorn it in. So I think 2 is, I don't want to say acceptable, but that's where I'm drawing my line. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's probably about where it would be,
Yeah. Okay, so number of times WotC products will be delayed. We set the limit here at 3.5, and for me, I'm going to take the under, but it's because we might define products differently.
That's fair.
So I think of all products associated with a set release as an individual product.
Yeah.
So if CBs and Commander decks for Murders of Karlov Manor are delayed, that's 1 product, not 2. So so the entirety of Karlov, everything that comes with it. So we have, what are they called now? They're not draft boxes. They're not set boxes.
Play boosters.
Play boosters. We are going to have play boosters, Commander decks, collector boosters, whatever. That's all 1 product. I know they have individual SKUs, but for the purpose of this conversation, I look at them as 1. So I'm going to take the under. That doesn't mean I don't think that sets won't be delayed for various reasons, but I do believe that based on the number of external factors that we've seen, all the way down to we messed this one up and we have to reprint everything because we did a dumb. I'll be fine on the under.
So I am taking the over for this, counting 1 set, all of its products as 1 SKU.
Okay.
But also if any one of those is delayed, that counts for all. And I took the over because I think every single product is going to be delayed at this point, because the last 4 have had some sort of delay.
Okay.
So I just think there's logistically something up there. And I don't know if it's the fault of the distros, the fault of the shipping companies, the fault of Wizards, the fault of who knows where it is. It doesn't matter. At this point, I'm surprised when a set release comes and goes without getting a delay notification.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the thing is what is for Lost Caverns of Ixalan, it seemed like not all. We got the delay announcement for collector boosters and commander decks, but some places still got an amount of those products. Not the entire shipment was delayed, which is even more weird. Like, we were able to walk into our LGS and they had a number of commander decks and CBs, but not the full allotment. So their entire order wasn't delayed, or maybe it was 1 distro and not another kind of thing.
Yeah.
Next up, number of times employees will be laid off. So this was written shortly after the announcement, obviously, and we've set the over-under here at 1.5, so that means we will get at least 1.5 announcements in 2024 about employee reduction, about headcount reduction. What do you think?
Yeah. I'm going to take the under.
Okay.
I think the pushback from the community, rightfully so, has been enough of a negative impact that it won't happen. A lot of very good people got let go.
Yes.
People that have been the lifeblood of Magic. And I hope and pray, and I understand things have to change, but Hasbro becoming so much more beholden to shareholder logic. My thing is, we went over the earnings call and we saw what their bonuses were. Just cut your bonuses and keep the good people, because you guys are running it into the ground.
Yeah.
And I would like to think at the end of the day, some of them will have some sort of soul and recognize, hey, these people put their lifeblood into this product so we can make an exorbitant amount of money to run this company into the ground. Maybe we should keep them around and we can run it into the ground for a little bit longer. So
beyond that, it's coming to light now. It seems that the entire Baldur's Gate 3 team was dispatched. So how are you going to bring in anybody else to make the next, like, it wasn't even a AAA game, but your next, like your next cash cow? How's anybody going to want to do that when you just keep letting people go? I'm taking the over on this one. I think we're going to see 2 announcements, one in Q1 and one in Q4. And that's going to tie into the next question. But I don't think we're technically done with the first round of layoffs, or the last round of layoffs for this year, however you want to look at it. But I think there's going to be another one in Q1. They think they'll have stabilized, they'll ride out the year, and then there will be another one at the end of the year when they realize that they did not weather the storm the way they wanted to, which is exactly what happened. They announced up top that, hey, we beat forecast, but everything is still negative, so we're going to do everything we can. And then at the end of the year, they just shed headcount.
Yeah.
All right. So will Hasbro meet profit forecasts? When we're looking at 2.5 quarters of beating forecast. And now when we look at this last year, they beat forecast, but all the forecasting was negative. So if they said they were going to make negative 100 million, then they beat it out and made like negative 60 million.
Yeah.
For me, I think they will meet or exceed profit forecasts, but it's just going to be the exact same as 2023. I think it's going to be overwhelmingly negative like it was. They're going to cite the same losses and issues in 2023 as well. They're going to look at Entertainment One. And
more on that in the next question.
Yeah, I think the continued issue with Entertainment One and trying to sell that while paying off its debts. They'll cite again loss of licenses like Disney, like the Disney Princess line, and not being able to gap fill that. And they'll discuss how they had released movies in previous years that had made profit, but they didn't this year, etc.
Yeah. But
again, they will outperform predicted loss, so they will just be losing less on their balance sheets.
I'm taking the under on this.
Okay.
I think overall economic factors are a huge part of that. I think that the industry itself has kind of shifted. I think that while they have made certain strides to right the ship, I think they have way too much work ahead of them, especially considering they still haven't. They're still paying for licenses and studios that they're paying for assets they don't own.
Yep.
I just, it's like the Raiders are paying 3 coaches to not coach for them. It's just, eventually you've got to get out from under it. And I just don't think they get out from under it this quick.
Yeah.
I think it is very close. I think it is exactly 2 quarters that they beat profit forecasts. And I think that's Q3 and 4. I think that Q1, they're probably lagging a little because I'm guessing there's not going to be as much disposable income come tax time working its way around to where Hasbro has a market share. So I'm on the under here.
Okay. And again, I think that's fair. Like, we have to keep looking at economic forecasts inside North America and see what's going on, where people are putting their money, and it makes sense that they just don't have the excess that they used to spend on items and elements like this.
Yeah.
You mentioned licensing fees, and so the last question we have here is the number of times licensing fees will be used as an excuse for not meeting profit forecasts. And we've set the over-under here at 1.5 times. So in 4 quarterly announcements, we can expect, 1.5 of them, i.e. 2, to reference licensing fees. What are you taking?
Over. I think every single call has that. I think the amount of money that they are going to spend to license Fallout and Final Fantasy, particularly Final Fantasy, which I have to assume they're going to start paying for this year. is going to be monumental. I think that those are going to cost them a little bit more. Obviously, they've already paid the cost and negotiated for it, but I'm expecting, based on what we've seen with some of the other licenses that have been used, if there's not a lot of fan overlap between that base, I'm looking at you, Doctor Who, and Magic players, it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there is some amount of crossover in Fallout. I think there is obviously a lot of crossover in Final Fantasy. I think Assassin's Creed is a dud, but it doesn't cost as much as the other two. But I am taking the over here because I just think they're so bad at licensing that it's going to cost them.
Yep, I'm taking the over as well. I think this is going to be referenced in both rounds of 2024 layoffs, especially after letting, I think their name is Megan Galbraith, go. Yeah. They were the director of Universes Beyond Creative and Production. They were let go in this round, and they're either going to effectively attempt to scapegoat this person and their role for licensing fees, or without somebody in this role, or without somebody with experience in this role, these fees are just going to become exorbitant, and then they're just going to pay out the nose for licenses to attempt to tie in franchises that may or may not actually matter to the game overall.
Yeah.
So that is the sad over-under for this year. Everything got a little muddy when we were talking about this because of the layoffs, and it kind of turns everything sour when you have to think about that.
Yeah.
But it does kind of impact the next couple episodes. We have our standard look ahead, our if we ran Hasbro episodes, because while it does shorten this and give us this kind of gonzo outlook on Hasbro that seems really doom and gloom, there's opportunity to still look ahead to see what they're doing, look back at the shareholder reports and make decisions and have conversations that are at least a little more positive than what we're seeing now. And then before we go into the picks, I have to know, did you pay attention to anything that was going on at the RC this past weekend?
So I spent most of the weekend actually checking out what was going on with Lorcana having the choice to choose between the RC and upcoming Lorcana set release and release cadence for reprints of sets like that. So I did not.
Okay. This past weekend at the RC, if I can summarize, vendors either didn't have commons or uncommons needed for a brand new version of the Rakdos deck in Pioneer because, hey, you ban a card a week or two out, you unban another, the format shifts. Vendors aren't pro players, they can't bring tech with them when they have to travel days in advance. So either it's not there, or they're there and they're charging, instead of quarters, which are miserable pieces of currency when you're on the floor of an event, to dollars. And this was a kerfuffle all weekend long that effectively was culminated in Aaron Forsyth speaking out about this and said, what happened to players being prepared for an event?
Please.
And the collective player base just turned and fired their lasers at Aaron Forsyth and said, who the fuck do you think anybody is out here opening this goddamn product anymore, Aaron?
Yeah.
Your company has run us into the ground.
Thanks, guys. Legitimately, that was one of... okay. That's amazing. I am so glad that someone is being held accountable for it. I'm sorry, Aaron Forsyth, that it's you, because realistically, he's not making the decision on how much of this product to print.
No.
But still, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, you had a bunch of vendors speaking out and be like, okay, we can either bring these cards and charge what we need to make booths profitable, and we get called...
greedy or scalpers or whatever.
And then people will go to Reddit and drag us. Or... we don't have them, and then people drag us because we don't have what you need.
Yeah,
and
can't win.
Yeah, exactly. And it becomes this weird ethos of just well, we can't bring everything all the time, especially when it's just random commons and uncommons that just didn't appear in formats prior.
Yeah.
And there's this weird gray area for players that don't understand how vending works, and vendors that are so out of touch with players that it's the Skinner meme from The Simpsons. Am I out of touch? Or no, it must be the kids.
Yes.
Or it's for a Thursday setup, we got to be there for Wednesday. We have no opportunity to comb the format on Monday or Tuesday, so you got to put your orders in and hope we could fly it in.
It's not great.
No, not at all. I just wanted to see if you caught that, because I just got to sit back and watch this happen and just be like, God damn, I'm glad. I'm so happy that I don't have to do
That
this
does
anymore.
make me very happy.
No, it doesn't. The situation is kind of shit, and it started
Yeah.
a little bit in with EW as well, because it was the same thing. It's like
It was like I said, the most asked about card was Fragmentize.
Yep, you had that.
I paid $5 to get a Buddy of Flash.
Yep. And then not Spirit Rend Spirit. See if I can bring this. I mentioned it. It's the Mirage common or whatever it is.
Soul Rend.
Soul Rend. Yeah, where you exile a white creature, and it's just like, if you know you need to exile Atroxus, you need to order that card ahead of time. Nobody's gonna have it on Prem.
Yeah.
And like, you just gotta take care of your business. That speaks into what Forthsight's saying, which is like what happened to players being prepared. But these aren't standard cards like what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But it started at EW. We're like, nobody have his shit on the floor. And people are like, well, there are stores all around. And like, we're not driving to a goddamn store.
Maybe you should.
Yeah, exactly.
I will say, I definitely spent many a night staying up until 3 a.m. finalizing my sideboard before a PTQ. But you know what? I had all the cards on me.
Yeah.
So at least I wasn't prepared, but in a different way.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense, yeah. And like, this is just one of those things that was just like vendor discourse that we just got to kind of sit back and enjoy, because it's like, we're not at the RCs, thank God. Thank God. It seemed like an absolute shit show.
Yeah.
All right. Now that we've tangented picks.
Yes, let's do it.
All right, I'm going to go first so you can talk about it, market call out in depth later on. Yep. For me this week, I'm going back to Big Dumb Dinosaurs, and we are looking at we're looking at Curious Altasaur, and this is a dinosaur from the Lost Caverns of Ixalan commander deck. It is 3 into green for a 2/5 with vigilance and reach, and the ability on it says whenever a dinosaur you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Again, this is another one of a long line of cards. It's just, you read it, you get it.
Yep.
When I added this to my list about a month ago in November, CK was buying 194 at 75 cents. They had 8 copies for sale at $1.50, and there were 39 listings on TCG Player LP or better for $2.70. As of this morning, when I finished my notes, CK was buying 34 at $3. Sorry, they were buying 71 at $2, and there were 34 listings on TCG Player for $3.79. So we've seen an increase in market price with a drop in about listings by about 18-ish%. And CK has more than halved their buy quantity, but more than quadrupled or about tripled their buy price. So we're seeing basically movement on this card like we would want. And at the end of the day, when it comes to Commander, this does exactly what it says. If you're playing dinosaurs, you jam this. If you're not, you don't. That's it, because this only triggers off dinosaurs. So dinosaur-based Commander decks, like some might think if you've ever played against one, can be really slow and plotting. They take time to get to the mid and to the late game, yet once they're there, they're very explosive in terms of power. But along the way, if the board stalls out or their board gets cleaned up, it's very hard to push through or recover from this, because you're basically in a Gruul-based deck. There's not a lot you can really do here. So Curious Altasaur offers those players a way to stay flush with cards for minimal cost. A 2-power, 5 toughness, vigilance, reach dinosaur for 3 into green that draws you a card for each dinosaur that deals combat damage to a player has very little downside overall. If you want to give this card negative marks, you can do so based on the low power it has compared to other mono green dinosaurs, but that's really about it. Not all dinosaurs have trample, so you have to put in work regardless of what you're doing to give the squad trample anyway. So if you're going to look at the keywords and try and neg it, not so much. If you do want to give it negative marks for a lack of power, that's a fine complaint to levy, but it's unnecessary, as Altasaur doesn't have to actually engage in combat to get the job done. This is yet another dinosaur that does this. It can just chill on it's like Facebreaker. Facebreaker doesn't have to enter combat. It can just chill on defense, and the stats sort of tells you that it should. It's a 2/5. This is just meant to hang back and play defense. At this point in time, I think we're starting to see a suite of dinosaurs that make up the core of a Gruul-based deck, and Altasaur is part of that. And the overwhelming amount of utility and synergy seems to come from the Gruul base, and once you have that, you can then flex into any of the possible off-colors and feel confident that you're set up for success. And for reference, some of the core that we're seeing kind of coalesce here is Curious Allosaur, Regisaur Alpha, Apex Allosaur, Quartzwood Crasher, Marauding Raptor, and the list goes down a little further, all the way to Ranging Raptors, which is the uncommon dinosaur that we've talked about here and there that has Enrage, rampant growth. Like, this is your core. Regisaur gives haste. We talked about Apex Allosaur on the pod, where it throws hands. Quartzwood Crashers makes XX tokens based on like the amount of power, amount of damage that each dinosaur dealt or something like that. So your dinosaurs just kind of grow exponentially. Marauding Raptor makes your dinosaurs cheaper. And then we covered Ranging Raptor. So this is like kind of the suite that we're seeing here. And from there, you can go Teamer, you can go Nea, you can go Gruul. Those are basically the way you build a dinosaur deck. Sorry, not Gruul, Jund. Those are the ways you go with the deck. And this is the core of the Gruul package. Now, we're buying into this card because we've kind of hit the dip and seen a little bit of recovery. The velocity in this card isn't amazing, and it moves about 10 copies a day, so it's kind of flying under the radar right now. And with a few vendors posting a decent amount of stock per listing, including Top Card Shop, they have 73 at $4.26. It'll be a few weeks before we really start to see the market value in this card pop. For reference, Top Card Shop is like midway down first page, but their listing is about 50 cents more than current market price. So it won't take long to get there at all. We just got to chew up maybe like 50 copies before we get to a brick of 73. And then from there, like, it just takes off like a rocket. But even with these anchors, if we buy in now, we'll be able to flip a profit within a few weeks, though it won't be a lot per copy. If velocity does keep up, it should be between 2 and 3 months from now when we can make about 10% or so on this, as opposed to like 5 to 8. And that's not a huge difference based on the amount of time. But in the interim, if things do pick up, if we do see a larger run on this card as stock disappears, then again, the timeline shortens, profits go up. And so I think it's a fine place to be in that regard. I do think buy less is going to take much longer, though, and moving these for profit is probably going to take closer to 6 months in that regard. I think CK's kind of hit their ceiling now that their retail is flush and they haven't really moved a ton of copies overall. Seeing that drop from buying 94 down to 71 kind of tells you that they've hit where they want, but they're still willing to pick up a couple more at a higher price point. But we know they step down their buy price as they hit certain thresholds. So they're buying 71 now, but if somebody sends in 20, sure, that number drops to 50, but the buy number might also drop down to somewhere into like $1.25, $1.50 range. So I think that's going to take a lot longer to buy list than open market. Reprint equity wise, this is a commander print card that only works with dinosaurs, so I think we're fairly insulated here. We should expect a reprint though when we're going back to a plane dominated by dinosaurs, so that's going to be very obvious to us, so we're going to be able to get out ahead of this if we want to sit on this for even longer. From a buy quantity standpoint, currently I don't have any, that's a lie. I wrote I didn't have any of these, but I have one because I did buy the deck. It's just been sitting in storage yet opened because we haven't just rebuilt it. But I'd like to pick up about 6 of these when I have time, 2 to play in other dinosaur decks, and then 5 to toss 1 to play in the additional dinosaur deck, and then 5 to toss in my binders for locals, because I know I have at least one dinosaur player, and he's very proud and very vocal when he plays the deck on Monday nights.
Good for him.
Yeah. For a reference, we bought the Polyraptor deck. We're going to be rebuilding that, but the dinosaur deck that I maintain is helmed by Grimlock. So
yeah,
roll out.
Yeah, I think this card's great, and like you said, it's it's becoming a pillar of this Gruul dinosaur deck. Yep. Not only that, one of the really nice things I like about this card is that it does the like green is kind of blue thing. Which means that if dinosaurs eventually expand into other colors, this will have a life in that deck because every color wants to draw cards.
Yep.
Especially Naya doesn't have a whole lot of card draw, unfortunately. Green is basically the best of those 3 colors at it. So adding this gives you a bunch of extra curiosities. And turning all of your dinosaurs into Edric creatures is pretty cool. So I definitely like it a lot. I think the reprint equity is honestly, on most of the dinosaurs, I think the reprint equity is just like a moot point
Yeah.
because it's something that is so plain specific, because it's not like, a generic fantasy trope that fits in any setting. You have to specifically have a setting for it. You can have zombies and ghosts and vampires everywhere. You have to have a certain kind of place to have dinosaurs.
Yeah. I want to lean into this and give a really good example of what you're talking about when it comes to plain specific dinosaurs and how it might be a moot point. Just give me one moment to bring this up. I want to make sure I get it right. So I mentioned Regisaur Alpha as being part of the core. That was released in the original Ixalan and it's back at the Commander decks. And if you don't know what it does, it's a 4/4 for 3, a red and a green. And when it ETBs, Regisaur Alpha creates a 3/3 green dinosaur creature token
Very
with
good
trample.
card.
Okay, with trample. But the first line on the card says, other dinosaurs you control have haste. If this was meant to be an agnostic card that we would see on another plane, then other dinosaurs wouldn't have haste. The token would have haste.
Yeah.
It would create a 3/3 green dinosaur creature token with trample and haste. That's how you make that card agnostic. When you want to tie it to a plane, when you want to tie it to an idea, a type, like we're seeing with dinosaurs, like you're talking about, you get that first line. Other dinosaurs have haste. So that leans into the moot point of reprinting that you're talking about.
Yeah, it just, they don't have, and especially, they're not like slivers.
Nope.
They're not these things that were created for any plane. So I think reprint equity is a moot point, and I think it's great because this is so far the closest thing we have to a blue dinosaur. And the cost and body are pretty good on it too. So not the worst thing.
Yep.
I, on the other hand, am going for, yet again, a market call out. So this one is probably a long time coming, and it is Mana Vault. So the interesting thing about Mana Vault, and I wanted to do this episode because we were talking about unannounced set releases, what we were getting reprints of, etc. We just went through a whole year with, yet again, no reprint of Mana Vault. We got Mana Crypt twice.
Yes.
In the meantime. I don't know if that's bad or good for Mana Vault. One thing I do know is it's currently below buy list on MKM compared to the retail price in the States. So to me, that's a great opportunity to contact any friends you have overseas and be like, hey, man, ship them on over, please. We'll take them. I think that looking at the set release, and you may think differently, I don't see where this gets reprinted. I certainly don't see it in Modern Horizons 3 because Tron does not need the help.
Nope.
Affinity might, but then just unban Mopal, and it's fine.
Zerd is banned, right, in Modern?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're fine.
True.
No, you still have Training Grounds and shit. You can go infinite with this.
Yeah.
Keenan Bonder Prodigy goes infinite there. You'll never get it.
Yeah, true. So yeah, you see, you just can't do it. So with no reprint on the horizon, unless it's getting into some kind of secret lair, this is a card that I expect before too long, probably within the next month or two when people kind of put it together on the whole and it enters the echo chamber on MTG Finance. This card probably primed for a bump in price.
Yeah.
This isn't something I would be looking to go out picking up aggressively right now because at any moment a secret lair could drop and all of a sudden, boom, here's infinite Mana Vaults. But I don't think they're going to do that because this is a card that they put in Ultimate Masters and that they put in Double Masters too as a mythic to move the set.
Yeah.
This is your chase card out of your pack. This is what you're buying the set for. And I get it. Now we have serialized cards. We have neon image variants and whatever. So those can help move boxes. But at the end of the day, you still have to have a good card in the set. And this is a good card that goes in a set you want to make a lot of money on. So unless we hit a Commander product like Commander Legends that's unannounced for Q3 or Q4 to pump their holiday releases so they can meet the quarter profit forecast, I don't think we see this card reprinted next year.
No, I think it's pretty clear cut that we're not getting, as it stands, unless there is a hidden offering in here somewhere. We're not going to get, there's nowhere to place this because everything hits standard unless it is the Assassin's Creed supplemental or Fallout supplemental. Well, I don't.
Yeah, the Universes Beyond and Modern Horizons, which, again, you're not getting Mana Vault in Modern Horizons.
I don't think we would get Mana Vault in a Universes Beyond. They're going to try and create something that's a little more unique than a mono vault. Like the Fallout would kind of make sense because you got to toggle the vault, otherwise it deals damage to you, right? Basically, as an energy source, it's a light switch, and if the lights are on, you take damage. When the lights are off, everything's fine. Which
true. I think we're more likely to see Treasure Vault reprinted in that with a universes within type deal. Okay. Just like Vault 76 and it's Treasure Vault.
Yeah.
But who knows?
No, like stuff like that makes sense. It's good to suss this stuff out because when you're looking at this, you're like, all right, how deep do I want to go if I want to spec on this or want to move this when people realize they're just not going to get another copy of this again? Like this is another year gone by without a copy of Vault. Then
which I think is still a top 10 most played card on EDH Rec or something.
I would assume so. Yeah, like you just want as many like cheap to free rocks as possible. Yeah. And so this is a good market call. It's another good example of like when you put in the time and the due diligence to like just stop looking at like past what's selling into what's not getting reprinted and where could it possibly get reprinted when we have the lists in front of us. It's a good lesson to either learn or be reminded of that this is also something you can and should be doing when it comes to MTG Finance. So I'm glad you are bringing it up as a card to look at and a call out.
Yeah, so it is not a top 10, but it is in 7% of all decks. So 250,000 decks.
Yeah, just casually.
Yeah.
So, no, I think Vaults is a good look. And even if you don't own Vaults and you don't necessarily want to spec on them, but you think you might want to play a Vault, this is also
now's
good.
The time.
Exactly.
To get it,
This is very good for that as well. Like this is a reminder that like, hey, we didn't get one. There's not one coming up. It's only going to cost more in time. So move in now when you can. So I like it overall. So next week we will be doing our look ahead, which is basically going to be a more crotchety version of this episode, if you can imagine.
Yeah.
Right. But until then, with an average amount of crank, we are at MTG Cabalcast on Twitter, Facebook, Patreon, and YouTube. You are
at Damon_Thurston.
I am at Halt I Am Reptar, and we'll see you next week.